Hello, this is Kyle Byron, the Toronto Nutritionist, and today we are talking about self-advocacy, like advocating for your own health, and this is one of my videos in my series on social eating. First, I'm going to tell you a story about a baked potato. One of my clients is a vegetarian, and all the rest of her family and extended family are not. They eat meat, and last Thanksgiving, my client did not organize anything for her own dinner at this big group family get together. Typically she does. Typically my client will organize something with her mom to have some vegetarian meal either prepared for her or she brings herself. For this Thanksgiving, she didn't bother, for some reason, didn't organize that. She gets there, doesn't even mention it again while she's there, still doesn't do anything about it. And I guess she was just assuming that there was going to be something provided for her. I don't know. But the mom says to my client, "Oh, darling, would you like a baked potato?" And my client says, "Sure." And then a few minutes later, everyone is sitting down. Everyone has lasagna, meat lasagna, and then my client is served nothing but a baked potato. Just a plate and a baked potato. And my client at that moment realized, I'm never doing this again. I am never not organizing, or I'm never not advocating for myself. You think about the mom in that situation. Making lasagna is pretty complicated. Hosting is complicated. So it was just maybe just one more thing to prepare something vegetarian for this one person, my client. So maybe the mom didn't care enough to do that, or the mom thought that a baked potato was an appropriate balanced meal to serve a vegetarian. Like my friend Kevin Okamura, we had a staff party with where I used to work at basically a butcher shop, and Kevin is vegetarian, and then one of the 8 courses that he got was just some cabbage. So it's not always vegetarians don't always get what they want, and they certainly don't if they don't advocate for themselves, is my point. So there's the baked potato story. Other stories I hear often, there's a group of people going to a restaurant, and the one healthy friend wants to go to the sort of a healthier restaurant and doesn't bother saying anything. Or I'll hear stories of, a group vacation, and the healthy person in the group wants to do a hike or get a hotel with a gym and doesn't bother saying anything. Well, that's like going with the flow. And how are you supposed to lose weight if you go with the flow? Because the flow is weight gain. That's where society just goes. If you take your hands off the wheel, you're just going to gain weight, because hyper-palatable food and restaurants and sedentary lifestyle, that's going with the flow. Unless all your friends are health nuts, and usually sometimes that's the case, I guess. So if all your friends are health nuts, you don't need to watch this video. So for the rest of us, let's look at why people don't ask for what they want, or why don't people advocate for themselves. Well, maybe they don't have the self-esteem to ask for what they want, or maybe they have in the past and then they learn helplessness, they learn that no one bothers listening to them. Or they don't want to appear selfish, they don't want to appear high maintenance, or they don't want to draw attention to their body or their weight or their goals. And that's tricky. I'm very sensitive to that, obviously. Not everyone is as, sort of confident, as some people, and so I understand that. But regardless of that, I do encourage people to advocate for yourself, and it can take practice. You know what? And this is why weight loss is just as much about psychology as it is about calories. If you don't advocate for yourself, what you're kind of saying is, well, I don't care enough about myself to do this. It's how are you supposed to pay for a gym membership if you're not going to prioritize yourself? And I guess, it's easy maybe to throw out the money for a gym membership, easier than advocating for yourself. But really, advocating for yourself is about making yourself a priority. It's like buying healthy food that's more expensive than cheap, processed food. It's about making yourself a priority. Okay, so how can we learn how to advocate for ourselves? So if you're not good at advocating and speaking out, pay attention here. I'm going to go through some tips. So, number 1, have good personal boundaries. And I have a video about boundaries. It's in this same playlist, so check that out. Good personal boundaries. That's where you don't let people walk over you and you don't walk over anyone else. Good boundaries. Think of this next advice as, well, I'm going to give you a rant on this, okay? So you are not a garbage can. family get-togethers. There's usually dessert left over, and then the dessert gets pawned off to people, and sometimes it gets pawned off to like the same person every time. The host doesn't want to keep the dessert because the host doesn't want to gain weight, and the host doesn't want to throw it in the garbage. So the host has this awkward thing that they don't want, and they're trying to pawn this thing off to other people. They don't say that. They don't say like, I don't want this awful thing, you take this awful thing. But that is what is happening. And then the person who doesn't advocate for themselves says, okay, I guess I'll take it. And now the burden is on my client. Typically, it's my client who's in this scenario. And I teach my client to advocate for themselves out of this. Because now my client has to either throw the cake in the garbage themselves, and it's like half a cake. It's not just like a piece of dessert. My client has to either throw it in the garbage or eat it all themselves, or have the stress of like resisting. And like there are such a thing as trigger foods, and we don't like to have those in the house, right? So in those moments, sometimes people cave, they don't advocate for themselves, and they take this thing home, and then it's just stressful for them. So how do you practice that? Well, honestly, personal affirmations. Like Stuart Smalley said on Saturday Night Live, I'm good enough. I don't have to do this. I can advocate for myself. And you build that up over time. That can take, months or years to build up the self-esteem to the point where you care enough about yourself to like stand up for yourself. It's not easy, but it can be done over time. And then day to day, like before holidays coming up, you can practice setting intentions. I will not take the dessert. I will say no thank you. And you practice that. That is called intention setting, and that stuff works well, okay? Now, how you actually go about advocating, you want to practice like sort of asking in a certain way, like saying, would anyone object to the following? Or you say, how would everyone feel if we tried this? So there's a certain way to pitch it instead of just being demanding. And so that can also take practice. And then paying attention to how you feel after a situation. So after you advocated for yourself, you'll feel proud. I want you to notice that. And after a situation where you became someone's garbage can and you didn't say no thank you even though you wanted to, pay attention to how that feels after. It doesn't feel very good. And that's a way to change behavior. You got to notice how you feel before and after different scenarios. And you want to have that good feeling, right? You want to be proud of yourself. So it takes practice. This concludes the video on self-advocacy. It's an important concept. It's an interesting concept. It has a lot to do with psychology, and weight loss has a lot to do with psychology. And that's why I have these videos. So check out the rest of this playlist. Check out my YouTube channel, and obviously subscribe if you like these kinds of videos. Good luck with your goals, and good luck with your self-advocacy.